As the seasons change, summer becomes king, extravagant and generous, and tells the story of Gruyère cheese with its controlled term of origin status, its AOC. The story begins as herds of cows come to the peace and tranquility of green pastures. Deprived of fresh grass during the winter, the cows now graze freely in flowering pastures. A variety of floral species bloom in the summer. Their subtle fragrances are to be found in the milk and cheese. Fond of her food, each cow chooses her own summer menu. One goes for dandelions, another prefers clover. Like us, they have their preferences and appreciate their vegetarian diet. While the cow enjoys the feast, the farmer prepares her winter food. The fields bustle with intense activity as tractors and farm machines come and go. The grass is at its best at this time of year. There can be no delay, and none of it should be lost. Grass is a precious commodity. We are in the Gruyère region, which gave its name to the cheese. A similar level of frenetic activity prevails in the countryside throughout the production zone, which includes the French-speaking cantons of Fribourg, Vaud, Neuchâtel, Jura, Bernese-Jura, and some of the bordering areas. Grass is harvested and turned many times to keep it in good condition. Once dry, it is gathered and carefully stored. Feeding, including the period when only natural hay is used, is strictly regulated. Neither the use of silage nor additives is allowed. 70% of the dairy cattle's nutrients must be produced on the farm itself. These and numerous other requirements ensure milk production of the highest quality. These specifications result in the unique quality of Gruyère AOC cheese. The farmers increase their stock by harvesting the necessary amount of hay for feeding the cows over the long winter months. "100 kilos of grass per day. That's how much a cow will eat before entering the milking parlor." With their appetite satisfied, the animals move to the gate, their udders full of the precious liquid which is the source of Gruyère AOC cheese. Morning and evening, 7 days a week, regardless of the season, farmers collect this white gold. This subtle natural alchemy is the farmer's major concern. In the fields, the cowshed, and the milking parlor, he cares for his animals, leaving nothing to chance when it comes to their health. As the first link in the production chain, he knows the importance of the role he plays. The quality of the milk he produces is essential for the transformation into Gruyère cheese, a true gastronomic treasure produced throughout the year in village dairies. These village production units perpetuate a tradition which survives in the mountains today. The herds enjoy climbing the paths that lead to summer pastures where the grass grows sweeter than anywhere else. Limited seasonal production of cheese still goes on in the high mountains. This venture continues despite difficult working conditions and rigorous weather. Although there are not many left, some herds still climb to high mountain pastures. With the end of spring comes the poya, a word from the Fribourg dialect meaning the ascent of the animals to the high mountain pastures. It's not easy leading these cows along the stony, slippery paths in the rain. Family and friends lend a hand. Mountain life could not exist without such mutual support. In the more than 100-year-old chalets, peasant families perpetuate the pastoral life of their ancestors. Like them, man and animal live subject to the laws of nature. This rugged life in harmony with the movements of the sun takes us back to the origins of Gruyère AOC cheese. Only towards the end of the 19th century did the valley people begin making this hard cheese. Previously, the transformation of milk into this kind of cheese was exclusive to mountain dwellers. They possessed no other means of providing for their winter needs apart from the transformation of their cow's milk into cheese. The basic principles of production are not different from those used in the countryside, however, the working conditions are. A genuine traditional handicraft, the making of Gruyère cheese in the high mountain pastures is still carried out on an open fire. The fire must be maintained at the proper level, and one has to know the ideal temperature of the milk. After warming the milk, it is time to dip a linen cloth into the cauldron to remove the curds, which will ultimately transform into the frais, a local word meaning the fruit of the mountain, that is to say, high mountain pasture Gruyère AOC. The family works together in the chalet's rustic atmosphere. The cheesemaker and his wife perform the same activities as in days gone by. Here the expression know-how takes on its true meaning. Today's Gruyère cheese will not be the same as tomorrow's. It all depends on the weather. Scorching heat, rain, cold, and snow can influence the outcome. The Gruyère craftsmen, defenders and guardians of ancestral know-how, apply modern technological advances to enhance taste and quality. While respecting the tradition and authenticity of an ancient recipe, they have adapted to the demands of the modern food industry. The milk used in the production of Gruyère AOC cheese is delivered twice daily to all the cheese factories in the designated Gruyère AOC production zone. After standing overnight at a temperature between 12 and 18 degrees centigrade, the milk is stirred and mixed with milk received in the morning. Copper kettles with a 4,800-liter capacity are filled. This quantity is sufficient to produce 12 Gruyère cheeses, each weighing approximately 35 kilos. The cheesemaker pays particular attention to the quality of the milk. The milk destined for cheese production is highly, strictly, and rigorously controlled. The cheesemaker tastes a sample from each delivery. The first analyses are made in the laboratory. When the morning and evening milks have mixed, the cheesemaker adds a special Gruyère cheese fermenting agents and the rennet, a completely natural ingredient made from the stomach of a calf. The rennet curdles the milk. The transition from a liquid state to a more solid mass takes around 50 minutes. The last 3 or 4 minutes of the process are essential to the quality of the Gruyère cheese. This is when the skill and know-how of the cheesemaker has critical influence. With expert eye and practiced movements, he decides when to cut the curds. As soon as he sees the mass has curdled sufficiently, the cheesemaker switches on 3 large cutting blades called tranche-cahiers. It takes approximately 10 minutes for the cutting blades to separate the compact mass into small grain-like pieces. These small pieces, about the size of a grain of wheat, and the whey, which is yellow in color, are then gently heated to around 57 degrees centigrade. The process takes approximately 40 to 45 minutes. During this operation, the cheesemaker watches over the development of the granules. Towards the end of the heating process, he checks to see if they are well dried. The cheesemaker checks the mixture's texture and elasticity to determine when it should be removed. The substance, which will eventually become Gruyère cheese, is now ready to be pumped into the molds. Here we go. Pumping begins. Within less than 4 minutes, the cauldron's contents will be pumped into cylinders on top of the molds. The whey, which is a cheese production byproduct, pours into basins situated beneath the molds. Here, 12 Gruyère cheeses begin to take form. It is now time for the cheesemaker to prepare the casein marks, which are made from milk protein. These marks, fastened to each round of Gruyère, are used to identify the cheese by its production date, as well as the dairy and round reference numbers. Once marked, the Gruyère rounds are slowly compressed over a 16-hour period. They are also regularly turned over. The following day, the cheesemaker and his team remove the previous day's Gruyère rounds from their molds. The fresh Gruyère cheeses progressively appear as the covers, metal plates, and side strips are removed. These metal side strips ensure traceability by imprinting the cheese with the cheese factory number and the Gruyère AOC label. These cheeses get their first treatment, during which the sides of each round are smoothed off. One after the other, the Gruyère rounds, which are still soft and supple, are loaded onto a trolley and taken to the salt bath. We now go to the salt baths. The cheeses are then submerged for about 20 hours at a temperature of 14 degrees centigrade in a 20% salt water solution. During this process, the cheese absorbs half of its final salt content. The active phase of the production process is now complete. The Gruyère cheeses are taken to be refined over a long period of time in the maturing cellar. A slight smell of ammonia fills the air in this controlled 13 to 14 degree environment, where Gruyère cheese develops its distinctive taste and subtle aroma. Mechanization in the cellars has become a useful tool to help the cheesemaker in his difficult task by treating an average of 80 to 100 Gruyère cheese rounds per hour. Cheesemakers can no longer do without modern technology. However, machines will never replace their skills and know-how. The cheesemaker makes daily visits to the cellars, turning the rounds of cheese and brushing and salting them on each side. His expert eye ensures that each round of Gruyère reaches its optimal level of maturity. After 3 peaceful months in the maturing cellar, the Gruyère AOC cheeses are now checked by professional refiners. They are evaluated while being weighed. Each round is checked, and if defects are found, it is discarded. It will not be given the AOC label. However, the professionalism of the craftsmen and women is such that only a few rounds of cheese will be eliminated. Most will be kept for 1 more month before the next important step, expert assessment by the Interprofession Gruyère. Using a cheese sampler, the expert taps the cheese, listening to its resonance in order to discover eventual defects in the product. The Gruyère rounds are judged on 4 criteria: taste and aroma, texture, conservation, and appearance. The committee will then test for elasticity, judge the external appearance, taste, and finally, render its verdict, followed by sample analysis and quality control. The end result is the final link in a long chain of professional activities, guaranteeing consumers a perfect product bearing the AOC label. At the end of the 5, 8, 10, or 12-month or more maturing period, which guarantees a mild, half-salty, salty, or coarse taste, the cheese is sold whole or by portion. Beginning in the fields, we have come to the end of a tale bringing true pleasure to connoisseurs of great cheese. Gruyère AOC is one of them.